I want to start with an anecdote or a reference to a very beautiful reminder from one of the Canadian scientists, sociologists, Marshall McLuhan, about 30 years ago or even earlier, I don't know when this book really came out, but I came across it. The book is called Understanding Media. And there he quotes a Chinese story, which in itself looks so small, not so special. But when you consider it carefully, it has a great message. And this is very, very important. And therefore I would like to start with this little anecdote. There was a person from a big city going to a village. It's a story from China. And this person from the city went to a small village for a holiday, and then he saw that there was an old man taking water from a pond which is somewhat far away for the garden where he's going to bring it. He carried the water all the way, watered the plants with this water, and he went many times to and fro to get the water, to water the plants, and to again go back to get the water. So, seeing this, the person from the city became a little bit interested to help the person. And with a good humor, he said, "Look, what you are doing is making it very difficult for yourself. And at your age especially, maybe it's a good idea that you look to arrange for a pump so that you can get the water pumped from this far distance to your garden, and it can be watered very easily." But this old man was smiling and said, "No, thank you." Then the person from the city became a little curious. "You mean you have considered this possibility? You know that it is possible?" The old man nodded and said, "Yes." Then the person from the city asked, "Then why don't you do that? Because it makes it all much easier for you." And then the elderly man stood up and said, "Look, it is like this. When a human being starts using a machine, he will start thinking like a machine. And when he starts thinking like a machine, he will start reacting like a machine. And by, his life will become more mechanical. Things will be more automatic. And this is why I don't want to use this machine." For a modern human being who is using machines and all kind of things everywhere, this story looks like almost like how can somebody say things like that? But it has a very valuable and deeply intelligent message in it. Because we can see how in modern life we are taking so many things for granted. We are not considering and connecting to the source. We see things working and we take it for granted. We put on a switch and we have the light coming and we say, wow, very good. We open the tap and we have the water coming and we say, wow, fantastic. And we are not even, now we are putting it like this, that it's great and fantastic, but most of the people who are using it, just they take it for granted. And it is the same thing happening, for example, for children who see that their parents go to the automat of the bank, put the card and can get money out of it, or give the cards into some shops and they don't even need to have money in the hand. They can do everything and they can buy some things, arrange things. So children who see these things and don't know that whole background of the person and the whole process of how things come together, for them the connection to money is like, why should they be so concerned about it? What is the problem? We can just go to the automat, or we can just get the card from the father's or mother's wallet and use it, and it is working and we can buy things. So what I'm trying to make visible is that we focus on the obvious and often forget to consciously connect to the background of it. So we lose the connection to the source, we lose the connection to the wonder, we lose the connection to the blessing that life is, because we don't consider it. And this is the challenge, this is what automatization really does. Many things are made practical, valuable, which is good, and it is good that we can do many things to make our living more beautiful and easy. But if we go in a one-track direction, going more and more blindly into this automation process, and not realize that through that we are losing our whole basis. We are losing our connection to our soul. We are losing our connection to what we are. Then it becomes a very different issue. It's a very important thing to realize how this is affecting the whole society. We are often using certain ways of going about life, certain mentality, certain approaches, without considering where it leads to, what will be the consequences of it. And that is very clearly to be found in the education, because that is where you can see. When children are brought up with the feeling that you have to become first in your class, you have to compete, and you have to prove to be somebody, you have to have such notes, and only then you are somebody, otherwise you will not be accepted and respected. We are training the mind of the children so that they can be used by the pragmatic oriented system. But in doing so, the children lose their connection to themselves. They start focusing more and more on how they should be, to compete, to compare, to judge in that way, to evaluate, and only when they are doing good, then they are appreciated, they get presents, and when they are not doing so good, they are criticized, they are looked down. And slowly, they also get so much into this way of thinking and believing that they judge themselves from this this kind of values. So what happens is, among the children, the connection becomes also more of competition and judgment and prejudicial. The human connections become less and less. And of course now with the digitalization and the way children spend their time with their cell phones and other media, you can see that many of them are losing the connection to the basic values, the basic roots of things. So far one can say that, oh, it's not so good and leave it like that. But when you see what the results of that are come in the grown-up, in many societies, especially in the modern Western society, we can see that many people are suffering from psychological problems, from depression. They are all taking medication. They are trying to manage within these structures through some kind of struggling with themselves through medication so that they can function. But it's a very tragic development. One has to understand it in the whole depth. From where does this depression and most of the psychological problems come? It's very simple. Originally, depression is not a sickness. It is a certain kind of misunderstanding in which human beings get trapped. When you judge yourself and when you are not able to be successful in the way it is expected, when you are not able to function and prove yourself to be special or worthy, prove yourself to be better than the others, you are afraid that you will lose your position, that you will be judged and looked down upon. Not only that you are afraid of others' judgment, but undercurrently you are judging yourself with the same values, with the same mentality. So in your own eyes, you cannot accept and respect yourself. In your own eyes, you feel, what is the point? I'm not worthy, I'm not capable to go to face all these requirements of the world. And they feel closed, they feel incapable to share it with anybody, they feel more or less left alone because everybody also is in the same trap, in similar kind of situations in higher or lower degrees. So it becomes a very delicate and destructive development which starts in the school as a very harmless looking way to promote people to get better in the school. This is a very fundamental factor which one has to see and question, because there you can see how certain ways of thinking and certain kind of approaches prevent human beings from understanding themselves and flowering in life the way we are capable of. We lose the connection to the wonder that life is. We lose the connection to the uniqueness of everybody. We don't often realize that life has created each of us as unique manifestations. There's nobody else like you. Have you ever considered deeply enough what its implications are? What it really means? If you really consider carefully, you will say to yourself, how can we compare ourselves with anybody? How can I compare and say that I'm good or bad? Because it's always so relative. You put standards and values. And when everybody is manifesting a unique dimension, a unique quality, a unique capacity, and you can understand it in a careful way, then you will see that this is something very wondrous in itself. It is a great respect of life, great respect of the Creator, that everybody is so unique. When one understands it rightly, one will greatly rejoice. One will be grateful. One will celebrate life. Then you don't get trapped in all this comparison and competition and the relative way of looking at things. But when the whole society is caught in this idea that you can be somebody only when you achieve all these things, and you are also pumped with all kind of concepts that only when you have this, then you are somebody. When you have a certain kind of car, a certain kind of villa, a certain kind of position, and so much bank balance, then you are somebody. So when you don't have all these things, when for whatever reason as in life things happen, everything changes. Sometimes you are in the position where everything is so easy and everything is flowing, and sometimes the wind changes and things are difficult, things are changing completely. So people who are only knowing themselves and judging themselves on the basis of the outwardness of this relative way of looking at things in the world, they will be in great anguish. And that is what we are seeing with so many psychological problems in people. And when you are unhappy with yourself, all your relationships will be also affected by it. In unhappiness, maybe you look in a relationship for someone to give you that what you seem to be lacking. You are seemingly asking for recognition from the other. But the other is also caught up in these kind of values. And even if the other would accept you and respect you, maybe because of their deeper understanding, you may not be able to take it. Because you will be suspicious. You will think that the other is only just trying to be nice to me, and maybe thinking inside that I'm bad, I'm not okay, I'm not worthy. Because you are feeling guilty, you are feeling not okay, you are feeling worthless. This is a big, big misunderstanding. This is a trap. But when you don't consider it carefully, when you are starting to believe that the way it all appears, this is the reality, then you can fall into great pain, in suffering, in misery. That is why those who are insightful are reminding, question life, question the nature of the reality, become familiar with what way things are really happening, who you really are, what are your real needs. Become more conscious, because only through questioning and confronting the nature of the reality, understanding the way things really are, we are capable to not get entangled in all this manipulative process which can happen more and more, and which is happening already in very great extent in the media, through the digitalized world, through the artificial intelligence. Now you know that with the artificial intelligence you can create personalities who don't exist, but they look like real persons, and they can be made to represent this or that and appear in certain ways. And they bring out stories and news and informations which are spoken with this artificial process, and it sounds so real. So you are made to believe something which is somebody else's interpretation and suiting their vested interest, but it has nothing to do with the reality. So you have to become alert how things are working in this life process. And we get also trapped in all this because in a more subtle way, we are trapped within ourselves. And that is what I'm wanting to address more. That's what where I want to bring your attention to. Because you are unconsciously holding to standards and values which you have collected and on the basis of which you judge from your past. And some are through the negative experiences which you have made, and that is creating the shadow in your life, and you see everything through that. There's a saying that if a cat gets burned in its mouth when it gets first time some milk to drink which is very hot, then whenever the cat sees a milk standing there, it will run away. Normally, cats are also known to drink milk and all that, and they like it. Many people give cats also milk. But just imagine when the first experience is of the burnt mouth and the pain, then suddenly you have a different connection to the whole thing. You can see it also in another simple human connections. You get invited for something by somebody for a drink, and then you experience some very heavy situation, some problematic, violent interactions take place, and that affects your life. So whenever somebody is inviting you for another drink anywhere, you will not be able to take it so easily. You will be very suspicious, you will be afraid. You will question it very strongly, and very often the automatic reaction will be, no, I don't want to have anything to do with this. Our way of reacting, our way of judging is based on our projection into the reality. And when you start realizing that we are not seeing the reality the way it is, we are only projecting through the standards, the values, the concepts, the beliefs which we have collected from the family, from the culture, from the religions, from the school, from fellow human beings who are around us. And then you see that that is not reality, that is my projection. But we need some kind of orientation to be in the game of the world. And through these kind of standards and values, we grow roots into the game of the world. But it is not in itself a good thing. Although every child needs to grow roots into the game of the world, but when this is going on in an unconscious way and we are trapped in it, we block our own capacity to open and flower in life. That is why it becomes very necessary for us to question, to confront, and realize who we really are. What is the way to see without getting trapped in the projections? And naturally, although theoretically everybody can very easily understand such things, but the questioning, the confrontation with the reality is also frightening. Because when we see that many things which we imagine as normal, as absolute, as the reality starts getting shaky, and you see that you cannot hold to it. And you are always used to defining yourself on the basis of these kind of judgments. When you say, I like this, I don't like this, it is somehow a way of defining. These are my friends, these are my enemies. So this is a way of defining. This I like, this I don't like. So we are trapped in certain concepts and beliefs, and we have the fear to lose them. We have to fear to not hold to it. But the fact is, these are arbitrary things. These are not things which we have been holding and keeping through understanding in a deeper way. And often things are only repeating itself mechanically. So we have to learn to look in the present. We have to learn to look without projecting through the past. And the more carefully we consider all this, the more it will become transparent that actually life is always in the now. And this is something which is very important for everybody to consider and realize, that our past is only our memory. It's not actual. The future is just, again, a projection on the basis of our past experiences and our fantasy, our fears and our desires. So, life is always only in the now. And the more carefully you look, the more it will become transparent. Life energy is always now. And you can see that the life energy can get pulled into different patterns of manifestation. It can go into fearful reactions. It can go into associations which are pleasant and comfortable. We can move in all these automatic processes. When somebody is praising us, we feel well, we feel comfortable, we feel as a support. And when somebody is criticizing us and saying something which shakes up our image, we feel threatened, we feel uncomfortable. We almost feel the person who is maybe honestly saying critical things, but we feel more like an enemy rather than a friend. So it's a very, very important aspect for every human being to confront the way we look, the way we understand, the way we see things, so that we can go beyond this approach of projections. I often quote these two people. One is Lao Tse, the great Chinese mystic, because when he was under compulsion asked to write a book, and he agreed to write, and he started with the statement, the truth cannot be said, and that what is said is a lie. When you carefully consider, this is a very significant statement. Everybody experiences something. You cannot share this experience to anybody else. You cannot give it to anybody. You may explain it, you may try to, if they can experience it themselves, then of course, it is their experience. But what you have experienced, the unique constellation which it has made possible for you, you cannot give it to everybody. You can try to explain it in words, and every word has a different association for everyone. Just like, as I mentioned in the beginning, invitation for a drink, this sentence, for somebody it may be a friendly gesture and feeling good about it, and somebody else may get into panic because of the associations. With the words we can function, with the words we can work out things. For example, we can say this is a chair, this is a little table, these are lamps. Yes, it's functional, it's practical. We need words in the game of the world. But when you want to go into deeper things, of feelings, of the understanding the nature of the reality, words can only be a help to give orientations so that you can experience the reality beyond words, beyond logic, beyond language. And that what you are is not a concept which you can get from anybody else. The Wikipedia cannot give you that concept and you can believe that you are that. That is not enough. That's not an understanding. That's only a kind of explanation for your logical mind. When you want to experience who you are, what you are, you have to learn to consciously put aside all these explanations which are coming automatically. That is what another great insightful person in the last century, Ramana Maharshi, was teaching people. When people came with all kind of difficulties and problems, his response was, ask yourself, who am I? And asking the question, all the answers which the mind is producing, look at it and remember that that is not the answer, because that what you are is not some explanation which you have to collect from anywhere. But you need to bring it up so that you can empty the mind of its entanglement in all these informations. So you look at it and reject it. You look at it and put it aside. And he says, go on questioning till the mind has no more any answer for you. And then he says, at this point, when the mind is not producing any other explanation, be with that quality of the quest. Be with that wakefulness. Be present. And that is the way to directly experience that what you really am. It is not easy. It is meaning also to confront all that what you identify with, all that what you carry as a belief, all your fears, all your desires, all that what you are clinging to, all your standards and values which you hold to. So it is not just something which you can do by the side. You need to decide for it. You need to consequently be questioning. So it is a very delicate challenge with which we human beings are in this world. That is why now we are having the topic of the artificial intelligence. It is not in itself a problem, but when we don't understand its possibilities and limitations, its dangers and its possibilities of entangling ourselves, being destructive to ourselves, when we are not realizing that, going blindly into the use of it, that is where our attention has to come. That is what we need to consider carefully and deeply. For example, when through the artificial intelligence we are trying to make everything more convenient, more comfortable, more practical, more effective. Yes, it feels good. But what are the consequences of it? What we are doing through that is strengthening our belief of a certain reality which is not real, which is only a relative reality. We are holding to an idea of ourselves which is not based on our understanding of who we really are, but only in this apparent relative process based on the conditioning. So through the artificial intelligence, we are trying to hold to the status quo. And that makes it very much more effective that we can get trapped in it, that we can forget what we are doing. We lose the orientation. We make ourselves incapable by and by to see and to understand things in the right way and look more deeply into it, because through the artificial intelligence you can manage and manipulate many things, and by and by the human being will feel useless, worthless, because artificial intelligence can do it. Nowadays, for example, they are offering in the internet, people can download, everybody can download programs where you can get an article written which normally may take a lot of research from you, many weeks or months of work behind, and this you give few words of the orientation and it prints out an article which is often found very qualitatively interesting. They can do many things like this. But what is the point? If you don't exercise your brain, if you just let the machines do all the work, and you cannot also use the brain in other areas in your human connections, in the way you understand and connect to each other. It is very important that we are courageously questioning where we use, how we use. So there is a great danger which we have to be alert about, and that is what we need to question. It is not artificial intelligence which is a problem. It is that how we are going to use it. And artificial intelligence in the hands of people who are seeking power, who want to control, who want to manipulate, who want to stay in power, into position. And that is what many dictators want, many people who are politicians who have come into power, and to hold to the power, they try in different ways to use all these possibilities. And it is not happening only in some countries where there is only a dictator working. You can see, like yesterday also I was mentioning this aspect, in one of the big democracies in a powerful country, the USA, in the last election, the president who lost the election, because he didn't want to lose, he wanted to stay in power, and he had his reasons for that, to stay in power, because when he's in power he will have less problem. Otherwise, all kind of things which he has been doing wrong comes into visibility. So it was his strategy to make people believe, those who were with him, that election has been stolen. The others are only trying to take away his victory. Even though many of the people who were appointed by him as attorney generals, as people in responsible positions, they all tried to tell him, hey, that's not true. We have looked into all this. But he will listen to them, but then go about as if he has not heard anything of that, and go on repeating his theory that this is all stolen. And it was very systematic. He had certain television channel, and certain radio hosts who are following him, who are connected with him, who are all included in this. And they have undercurrently other calculations which are connected with some group being more superior. And so they brought up many kind of factors together so that all these groups can contribute and support them in fighting, collecting a lot of funds, millions of dollars, to fight the case, to propagate this. So a great percent of the voters who are only watching these channels, listening to these radios, started believing that this is how reality is. This is how it is really the case. So other channels which were bringing these other informations, many were not watching. And when the others would tell them, they were looking as if like, what you are wanting to fool us, because they believed. And this is also where we are coming into a subtler problem. Everybody, when they start settling in something, they want to believe that the way they see, the way they think, this is the absolute thing. They don't want to question. They don't want to get disturbed. So unless you realize it is an individual challenge primarily, because even though it has global implications, when you want to bring about solutions which are healthy and effective, you have to do it on an individual level. And you cannot start asking anybody else to do it. You have to start with yourself. That is why I remind anybody and everybody who is coming across these basic aspects and are questioning and considering, go deeper, confront your reality, gather the courage to be utterly plain and honest with yourself, because that is what finally matters. And take the help and support of those who have gone deeper into these areas to question, so that in moments of unclarity and confusion, you can get some orientation and support. It's a very challenging journey. It's a courageous inquiry, what is asked of us as human beings, because we have to confront our helplessness. When we see that the way we look and see things, it is not the truth, then the fear arises, then to what shall I orient to? That anybody can do anything what they want with me. So that is the fear, but you have to see that it is not just settling in a kind of belief like that. You can go on looking in the present. You can go on being wakeful in the moment and go on answering without getting trapped in the projections through the past. But for that you have to watch your fears, watch your automatic reactions, and not go blindly with it, but also not go blindly against it. When you stay wakefully in this orientation and bring awareness in your life in this way, you will realize that slowly, that which looks so dark and impossible to see anything, you start seeing a little bit forms. You start getting a little bit more familiar with the scenery. You start feeling and sensing more. This is how we slowly come to attain a new quality of looking and seeing the reality without getting trapped in the projections through the past. And what we will also see in this whole inquiry process is the Creator, life which has given us all these capacities, all these possibilities, is also supporting us in many ways than what we can imagine, many visible and invisible ways. But it is an adventure of discovering yourself. And it is not cheap. You cannot buy it anywhere. Nobody else can give it to you. You cannot download it from the internet. So it's a very important thing to understand that we are in a stage in this development of human society, in human life on this planet, where to experience the reality the way it is becomes very deeply significant. Because only that can give us the right answers, the right way to solve the problems and challenges. In the biblical statement, it is coming out very beautifully, where it is said, and in Freiburg it is written in the university building in golden letters, only the truth can make you free. It's very, very valuable. We need to consider, understand, and take the inner steps which are required so that it becomes a realization. It's not just enough if you believe anybody and say, oh, great, nice, golden letters. Yes, golden letters are an attempt to make the importance of it visible, but we need to practice. We need to bring it into living. We need to question. We need to be recognizing the urgency for it and make priorities. Then we will see that. That is what opens us the door to the real understanding the blessedness, what life is, understanding the blessing to be in this body, to be in this planet, to be part of the earth, to be part of the celebration and the wonder that life is. The more we realize and open up, the more we realize what a blessing it is. Without confronting, when we are in difficulty, when we are confronted with problems and challenges, in states of pain, in states of suffering, the whole life looks so much like a curse. It looks more like a punishment. It looks like, why should I have all this? The problem is, rather than inquiring and questioning what life really is, what we are, what is the nature of the reality, often we see, oh, there's a big challenge, a big problem, so we try to distract ourselves. And that is the thing. People going into excessive drinking of alcohol, going into drugs, making themselves busy with some activity and indulging in some kind of intoxication and excitement blindly. What are they doing? There is a fear, there is uncertainty, unclarity. And rather than facing it, going deeper to understand oneself more clearly, they try to suppress these feelings and engage themselves with something else. I often speak about the simple ways of running away from the reality, which, when even speaking about it, will look like absurd. What are we doing when we are chewing gum? What is that? It's not nourishment. What is this trick? We feel restless, we feel impatient, we feel somehow unclear. Then we open a chewing gum and put it on the mouth and starts chewing. We find a way to engage ourselves. We find a way to distract and pull the energy into another area. It may look clever. It may be sometimes very practical when one can just continue to push oneself in the same direction rather than looking, what is this restlessness? What is the impatience? What is the uneasiness? If you confront and inquire, you ripen through it, you grow through it, you rise above the entanglement. But when you only push it aside, suppress, and just follow the so-called clever way of dealing with it, you make yourself more vulnerable for suffering. It is the same with smoking. People who smoke, everybody is knowing that they're writing nowadays, even with the governmental order, they have to write on the cigarette packets that this smoking of the cigarette can be causing cancer, it can be deadly. But people who have become used to it and get into it, and many young people are getting, nowadays some studies are showing that there's a little lesser consume of alcohol but more smoking. It has to be courageously and honestly questioned by yourself. It is not a question of trying to figure it out on a social level and making theories and discussions around it. No. You have to ask in your own life, what am I doing? And that is what I mean by being ruthlessly honest with yourself. Because you can make anybody else feel and believe all kind of things about you. You can put on a nice picture about yourself to the others. And it may be looking practical in a certain way. But undercurrently what you are feeling, what you are believing, what is working in you, that you have to confront. So when you confront, you come into the deeper experiential understanding of the wonder that what you are. But till you come to the experiencing of the wondrous reality and the blessedness, we have to pass through all kinds of misunderstandings, unclarities, settlements, clinging. And that is not easy. And because it is not easy, we try to look somewhere else. We try to distract ourselves. So this is the dilemma, this is the challenge, this is what we need to question. When I speak about all these things in this way, I am not trying to criticize or condemn anybody. It is very human that we all have these pulls and tendencies. But we have to understand it's not a question of morality, it's not a question of proving ourselves to be right or wrong. It is really asking what is intelligent, what is healthy, what is sensible, what leads us to. When we go in a certain direction, where is it leading us to? What are we trying to attain through that? So it is what I mean courageous in this sense, that you face the issues which are there in you and not try to go around it. And that is what will give you a deep inner clarity and integrity. Because when you are not caught in an inner conflict, when you are not trying to suppress anything, your energy is free. And when your life energy is free and you are not trapped in all kind of things, you are able to manifest the potential of love in you, and you become capable of understanding each other more deeply. And that is very, very important, because we are told in many ways in the social behavior, be tolerant to each other. But how can you be tolerant when you are trapped in your own misunderstandings? You are believing that when I am not like this, and people are not like the way it is supposed to be, then they are all bad, they are danger, they have to be changed, or we have to get rid of them in some way. So, out of the fear, out of a narrow way of looking, we become directly or indirectly involved in destructive processes, in violence, in hate, in condemnation, and in false pride, prejudices. So, see the implications of our unconscious and blind behavior, and the artificial intelligence, when we go and pursue it blindly, entangles us more into it and making it more difficult to go beyond the entanglement in the misunderstanding and suffering. That is why it is very important that we become alert, that it is not only that some unsensible person can misuse and use all this scientific knowledge, just like atomic weapons and the knowledge of science of the atom energy or other chemicals can be used to gain power and to control the others. It is more in a subtler level, this artificial intelligence and its possibilities to misinform, to mislead, to create deceptive pictures of what is a big danger. But the bigger danger is when we don't realize what is our part in it, how we are supporting it unconsciously and blindly, why we are going with it without even often realizing that even though we may find it not also good, but we are unconsciously giving energy to it, following this, settling with that. So become aware of your part and recognize the urgency to experience that what really is. And it is in becoming aware of the blessedness of life, the wonder of life, we feel in the right way responsible and recognize that we are in paradise. We don't have to look for the paradise somewhere else, but we learn to look and see and live it in the right way. We have everything what is required, only we need to take the initiative individually, courageously, honestly, to face, to understand and experience who you really are, what is possible, what is not possible, how nature is working. And life is supporting us. That you can perhaps again and again bring into consideration that we are here on this planet because life has made all the basic requirements that we can be here. I so often repeat about this, that how the earth is moving, how the sun is there, how all these delicate factors are working, how the force of gravity is working, how the climate manifestation is happening, and now the scientific research is revealing to us many things, how there are currents in the ocean which are contributing to the keeping of the climate in a certain way. So we are often not considering many basic things and realizing how much life is supporting, how much the Creator and the ungraspable intelligence behind the whole creation is there, inviting us to understand. But this we should also become aware of. It is a great respect of the Creator towards the human being that we have the free will We can not only do the right thing, we can also do the wrong thing. We can not only be creative, we can also be destructive. So we have a great responsibility. I would like to conclude for this evening with a little children's joke. A little snake was asking its mother snake, "Mom, are we poisonous?" The mother snake asked, "Why? What is the problem?" I was just biting my tongue before." Maybe for a snake it is not a problem when it bites its tongue, but we are poisonous when we go carelessly with our life energy. We can be not only destructive to ourselves, we can be also destructive to all the surroundings. But we also have the great potential of being creative. We have the great potential of manifesting love, understanding, peace, and celebrate life. Celebrate this wonder, what is in us and around us. I would take some moments if there are any questions in anyone who is participating from here or participating from elsewhere. So if there is no question, we have so much for this evening.